Welcome to the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast. I'm Joy Taylor. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on FS1. Here's what this podcast is all about. It's an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the day's show, and there is a lot to get into in today's podcast. Skip tells us why his Cowboys would beat the Giants in the playoffs at Jerry World. Shannon claims George Karl's comments on Carmelo are out of bounds for a coach. Shannon, Skip, and I take time to share our thoughts on how Oklahoma head football coach Bob Stoops handled the suspension of Joe Mixon. Former NFL GM Michael Lombardi is in studio to tell you why he is not buying the Giants and says there is no way they can get a playoff win on the road. Plus, FS1 NFL analyst Chris Carter is here to say why Dak Prescott has not received enough credit. Skip, you okay over there?
I'm just over here by myself. It doesn't matter. I'm on my island. I'm ready to go. How are you, Joy?
I'm
How are you,
great.
Shannon?
Oh, so you want to give me some pound today, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday,
you
oh, you
I'm
sucking
about
up
to give
the
you
joint.
some real pound.
Oh, you kissing up the joint again. I don't have to kiss her.
I heard you. It's okay. I just accept it. It's just part of the show now.
It's part of the
It's
show now.
completely fake, and it's okay.
Well, you gave me a hard time about being short yesterday, so
Did
he's
he
got to make
really?
up for that.
Ooh, demerit.
I am
think
not
you're in
5 feet
trouble.
tall. I'm 5'2". The extra 2 inches are important. I'm 5'2".
Like this.
Let's get it
Advantage.
started in
Yeah.
the NFC East. The 10-4 Giants are on the road tonight against the Eagles. If the Giants win, they will clinch their first playoff berth since their 2011 Super Bowl season. If they lose, the Cowboys clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Say that again, Joy. The Cowboys
Will
clinch?
clinch the
Thank
number
you.
1
Thank
seed
you. I
in
want
the
to hear that again.
NFC.
Thank you.
This is about the
Appreciate that.
Giants and the Eagles
Oh.
tonight.
It's
Yeah,
sort of
we'll see.
also about the Cowboys,
I think
though.
it's a lot about the Cowboys.
Who wins tonight?
Thank you for asking me that question, Joy. Yesterday, I changed my mind about which team I want to win tonight because until yesterday, I was rooting for the Eagles to upset the Giants tonight in Philadelphia, where they're only a mere 2.5-point underdog. So I do give the Eagles a real shot here. But yesterday, I started to see the light, even though, obviously, as Joy points out, if the Eagles do win, my Cowboys do clinch. Home field advantage and a bye. Are you believing this? But they would clinch with 2 games to go. So on December the 22nd, 46 days before the Super Bowl, my Cowboys would clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs, giving them only 2 potential playoffs games to have to win at home to get to Houston for the Super Bowl. How about them Cowboys? That's pretty great.
But
Yesterday, it came clear to me that my owner and my co-coach, Jerry Jones, wants to get Tony Romo back in that saddle as the starting quarterback. So if the Eagles do upset the Giants and the Cowboys do clinch, then the Cowboys would have 2 meaningless games left on their regular season schedule that would become the equivalent of 2 preseason games, exhibition games. And all of a sudden, it would be the dream scenario for one Jerry Jones to be able to ease Tony Romo back into the fray. They could split snaps maybe week from Monday night against Detroit. And then that final game at Philly, for all I know, Tony Romo would be the starting quarterback from start to finish, which would make him the starting quarterback, I fear, for the first home playoff game. So I started thinking, wait a second, maybe I should start rooting for the Giants here because I'm going to go one level deeper for you. Sometimes I talk a little over your head, but it's okay. So just bear with me. Go with me here. The other thing that occurred to me, yeah.
At 5'3".
So, yeah, exactly. Wait, you
It's a good
call me
height.
5'3"? Her 5
Good
feet and me
height.
5'3"? Okay, I got it. Insult accepted. But here's the point. What if my Cowboys do have 2 meaningless regular season games followed by a bye week before they play their first big game of the year, a playoff game? That's too many weeks. It's too long. Because for a young team with momentum and chemistry and unity and flow, I don't want them to lose their edge now over a 3-week period. I'd like to see Dak have another shot at another test, which would be the following Monday Night Football against the Detroit Lions, a very good team leading their division. I would like this team to be able to keep its edge against Detroit. I wouldn't even mind it if they were forced to win another game the final week at Philadelphia against another arch rival within the division to keep it going and also to keep Dak in the starting lineup because I don't think there's any way if the Giants do win tonight and the pressure remains on my Dallas Cowboys against Detroit, is there any way Jerry would go to Romo? There's no way he could do that. He would have to let Dak have another start. And I believe Dak would come through again with flying metallic blue colors, another 32 or 36, to hold on to the job another week long.
He's never doing that again in his life.
We'll see about that. Are you on record with that? He's almost
nobody
done it
does
about
records
3
anymore.
times.
I'm
this
all
year.
about DVD, email.
All right. So finally, it also dawned on me last night. I want the Giants to keep winning. What are they up to now? 8 out of 9 that they've won?
Yep.
I want it to be 9 out of 10, 10 out of 11, 11 out of 12. I want the Giants again because I do not fear the New York Giants. I'm on record. I've told you before, and I'm going to say it again. I don't fear them. I want them to keep winning. I want them to win tonight, and I believe they will win tonight by their usual ho-hum, how did they pull that off method, which is they make a couple plays, they play stout defense, they're going to beat the Eagles tonight 17-10, blah, 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 and let them keep coming because I want a third shot at the Giants. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season, let alone the 3rd time at Jerry World. We're on opening day. As I have to remind you, they won 20-19 because Des Bryant and Measly Beasley dropped touchdown passes that cost my team a grand total of 8 points because they had to settle for 2 field goals early in that game.
Hey, well, they didn't get it done in the red zone.
Okay, so they didn't get it done. This time they will get it done. And that other game up at New York, both quarterbacks could not throw the wet football, but Eli made one throw to one guy, Odell Beckham, and one safety, Barry Church, took a terrible angle, and he got loose and got gone. And that was it, 10-7. That's it. That's all you got. So I lost by 1 point and by 3 points to the New York Football Giants. I'm scared. Bring them on.
Say what you said one more time. You did what and by what?
1 and 3.
No. What did you say? You said your Cowboys did what?
Lost.
They lost by 1 point, and they did what?
Lost by 3.
Oh, okay.
That's
so
it.
That's 2 L's.
Yeah,
And
two L's out of 14 games. I'll take it, and we will correct that L with a W in a playoff
So let me get
game.
this right. So you want to fight the bully a 3rd time.
Bully?
That kicked your butt twice on the way
Bully?
home.
Did anybody ever confuse
Bully
the
them.
Giants with bullies?
Well, unlike
Hey,
you.
the 2000 Ravens were bullies on defense. Not on offense, but on defense. But this is not the 2000 Ravens we're speaking of.
I'm glad somehow you managed to work all that Cowboys talk in there about
It's all
the
about
Giants
the
and the
Cowboys.
Eagles. But I'm going to stick on topic. I'm going to say the Giants. I like the Giants tonight because I love what they're doing defensively. It's always nice when you invest $200 million in a project, Damian Harrison, Snacks Harris, Janoris Jenkins, and Olivier Vernon. It's nice to see that when you sign big dollar free agents, you use them in the exact same way they were used in their previous schemes. And that's what you're seeing. They're letting Janoris Jenkins play man coverage. They're letting Olivier Vernon, lining him up on the open side, go get the quarterback. Snacks, 1st and 2nd down, stop the run. Occasionally, we're going to put you in there on 3rd down, let you go get you a sack at 335.
So now it's we? The Giants have become your we? Your we of the week. We should have a new feature on Undisputed. Shannon's we of the week. It could be Seattle. It could be the Giants. It could be the Falcons.
The Chiefs?
Could be the Chiefs on the other side, yeah.
You going to let me finish?
Go ahead.
Just let me finish.
But you're amusing me.
I love what I'm seeing defensively. They're moving into the upper echelon of top defensives. I like what I'm seeing, Skip. Now, offensively, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah.
But the way they're playing is that basically Eli and Odell are playing one play. And when you play that way, you can't make mistakes. You can't allow a team to score when you have the ball offensively. You can't give up a punt block. You can't give up a return because your defense can't defense those. I don't believe a team can consistently drive the ball down the field and stick the ball in the end zone against this defense. So with that being said, if you play this type of football, you're going to play to your defense. You're going to play lights out defense, and basically you're playing for one play. You hope you catch them in the right defense at the right time. Odell can break a tackle or somebody can get loose, and it's a home run. And when you play that way, man, it's a very, very small window for error. Because if you turn the football over, you're probably going to lose. Because what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 weeks, yes, they won all these games, but it hasn't been pretty. It's basically Odell and Eli making one play. And so, but the Eagles are struggling against the run. The Giants don't run the football particularly well, but they do get Lane Johnson back. I believe Lane Johnson, if there is such a thing, he is the premier right tackle in football. Served a 10-game suspension for PEDs.
Yep.
That will offer a little more protection
Yep.
for Carson Wentz. But I'm going the Giants 20-13. I do believe it'll be a low-scoring game. I don't think it's but a touchdown game for the Giants. 2013 Giants win.
Are the Giants a Super Bowl contender, Shannon Sharpe? On the record.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
How? Why?
Because they played the Cowboys. They're in the Cowboys division. They know how to beat the Cowboys. Anything Eli's battle tested. He won 2 Super Bowls over your team, beat Tom Brady, beat the brakes off him too.
So my quarterback has the #1 QBR in all of pro football. His name is Dak Prescott.
And he also
Everybody
has the
forgets his
#1
name.
running back in all of pro football.
Okay, I'll take that.
He has 3 first-team
Make my case.
All-Pro.
Keep talking. Keep going. I like it. My defense has risen to #4 in all of football in points allowed, which is pretty great. Now the Giants
What
are
does your
#3.
offense do against that defense, though?
Well, let me finish. Eli Manning is 23rd in QBR. Dak #1. Eli, the great Eli Manning, is 23rd. They're 24th in the whole league in scoring, which is abominably bad. For Eli Manning, 23rd in QBR, 24th in scoring. So how are they doing this? Well, the way they're doing it over the last 8 games, last 8 games, they're #1 in defense in the NFL. That's what's happening. So they're allowing over those games 15.8 points per game. That's the best in the league. Offensively over that stretch, those 8 games, they're scoring 20.3 a game, which is 21st in the NFL, which is not very good. So I don't know how they're pulling this off.
Hold on, Skip. You do know, because you went to Vanderbilt, and you'll tell everybody that asked you the Harvard of the South.
Thank you.
You quick to say
that.
Now, Eli and his offense, they're scoring 20 points a game. Janoris Jenkins and Olivier Vernon on that defense is giving up 15 points a game. Yet you don't understand how they're winning?
Nope. They're pulling it off. Again, our Michael Lombardi calls them a Ponzi scheme. I can't go that far because the defense is not a Ponzi scheme. That's real. Ponzi scheme is all smoke and all mirrors.
Well, help me understand this. The guy that leads the National Football League in QBR, the guy that leads the league in rushing by over 300 yards, the team that placed first 3 guys on the Pro Bowl as starters, and they can't beat the Giants. The Giants with Eli Manning, he's like 50th in QBR out of 33 quarterbacks, so there are a couple of college kids that are better than Eli. They can't run the football, but somehow, lo and behold, the Cowboy has 2 losses. And will you please tell the audience at home who handled them those
let me
losses?
explain to the
I don't
audience.
want you to explain, Skip. I just asked you a question.
Are you giving me the stage or not?
No.
You ask questions that you don't want me to answer
didn't ask
because you don't like the answers because they're true.
I didn't ask you to explain. I asked.
You
said,
should
Skip,
quit asking me questions.
No, Skip Bayless, can you explain to the viewing audience at home, the Cowboys have 2 losses. Who gave them those losses?
Here's what
I don't need you to explain. I don't want you to explain. I just want you to answer the question.
No, I'm going to explain to you why that happened. The quarterback drafted in the 4th round out of Mississippi State that everybody said was a project, and he's if he wasn't even the guy that Jerry wanted to draft. He wanted Paxton Lynch. He wanted Connor Cook. You get stuck with Dak Prescott. He has to start the first pro football game he ever plays in place of the great Tony Romo at Jerry World. Late afternoon game against a division rival. I thought he played well enough to win the game, but his big star wide receiver, Des Bryant, can't hold on to the ball in the end zone. Little measly Beasley catches one at the 2-yard line. No, he didn't catch it. He muffed it. He whiffed on it. He dropped it. It was a touchdown. Dak Prescott should have won the first game. The next game, which was 2 weeks ago, was a wet ball game, and even Eli said after the game, I just couldn't hang on to the ball. Even you said. There was one interception Eli threw. You said, what was he doing? Eli even had an empty hand fumble where the ball slipped completely out of his hands and went backward.
Well, I'm glad.
It was a wet ball.
I'm glad when he threw that one touchdown, he was in a phone booth and everybody else was outside.
Okay.
So he was dry just that one time.
He gripped one ball for the whole game, and that's all it took, 10-7.
You don't mind? Hold on. Shaniqua, make Skip Bayless not offer explanations. You normally have Siri.
You have Shaniqua?
I got Shaniqua. Shaniqua, no explanation. Skip Bayless. I don't want you to.
I don't have Boost Mobile or whatever you got.
Whoa! Why you on
I don't
Boost?
have it. It doesn't apply to me.
First of all, can you answer the question? I don't want no explanations. I don't need you to get into an explanation.
Yeah.
You need to structure your question better.
Okay.
Be more direct.
Okay.
What is the name of the team that beat the Cowboys twice this season?
Skip. The
Yes.
Cowboys have
Yes.
2 losses. Can you name the team
Yes.
without offering an explanation to why, how, when, and where? Can you name the team to our viewing audience that the Cowboys have lost their 2 games to?
The Cowboys lost to Des Bryant and Mother
Oh,
Nature. Wait, you didn't hear me.
No.
And Mother Nature. Des Bryant and Mother Nature. Those are the 2 teams.
Joy asked me. Joy said.
Am I right?
Joy said.
Des Bryant, Mother Nature.
Joy said, how about this, Shannon? Frame your question a little better.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this again. The Cowboys are 12-2.
Yes.
Those 2 losses happened to which team in their division?
Happened to which team? To Dallas. They happened to
No,
Dallas.
I'm saying which team put those 2 losses on their resume?
Put those 2 losses on their resume?
Yes.
The New York Giants did.
That's all I needed you to say.
That's all?
That's it.
Everybody knows that.
No, they didn't.
But everybody
No.
needed to know why
No.
those 2 happened.
No.
And now they know why.
The why,
Yes.
the when, the where is inconsequential.
Valid excuses both times.
There's no.
Okay?
I'm in the results business.
Okay, so am I, which is why I'm on the record. I'm completely out to the end of the limb. I'm saying I want the Giants in a home playoff game. That's all. I want them.
Skip.
I want them.
Skip.
I would book it. I will book it right now. Dallas will beat New York in a home playoff game if it comes to that at Jerry World.
They bloodied their noses.
They didn't bloody
twice.
their nose. They lost 20-19 and 10-7. Are you kidding me?
Hold on. So
Flukes, 2 flukes.
So how many wins do you get for a 1-point loss?
One. You get 1 win.
Or you don't get no wins?
all. No,
you
you
didn't
get
get any.
Huh?
You didn't get any.
Well, you asked me how many wins you get. You get 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's all.
So we got how many wins?
Okay.
How many
Who's
wins?
we? Are you a we Giants now?
I'm Skip.
What's happening?
Okay, how about this here? The Giants.
What happened to the we Seahawks?
Hold up. I could have swore I said on Monday when they asked, are the Giants, are the Cowboys the favorite? Are you any more sold? I said no.
You did.
Because I believe the Giants, the Seahawks,
Yes.
and the Atlanta Falcons
Okay.
are in the same boat with your Dallas Cowboys.
Who have consistently, routinely proved you wrong again and again and again and again. 10 times this year, you have had to sit in that chair on a Monday and say, well, you never admit you were wrong, but you were wrong. You had to eat crow.
And
10 times they made you.
2 times this year, guess what I got from Mr. Skip Bayless? Propel. And do.
Yeah?
Yes.
Oh.
And guess what? I'm gonna get some more. I'm gonna get some more.
All right,
Well, I think you have to make it equal before you get more, right?
No, I'm
you
gonna
do
get.
you have to get even first.
Come playoff time.
Okay, let's make one future bet. If it does come to Giants, Cowboys
Yes.
at Jerry
Yes.
World, because it's going to have to, I think it's
Yep.
going to have to be at Jerry World
Yep.
unless the Cowboys collapse.
Yep.
I'll bet you any number of cases of the drink of your choice, I'll take the Cowboys.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Done?
You know what I want? I want you to go get me one of those old-timey glasses of a root. I want a root beer
A
float.
root beer float?
Root beer
Yeah, I want you to go to one of those old-timey
so much
pharmacies.
sugar in that. You don't even
Joy
drink those.
Taylor.
Like a
I'm
fountain?
trying to
What, are
get
you gonna-
something that I want.
Are you going to give it to me?
No, I want you to go get me one of those old-timey root beer floats like they used to have in the 1950s where they scoop the ice cream up out the machine down
Fountain
there.
drink,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I
Fountain
want.
beer.
I want one of them old-timey, and the pharmacy needs to be at least 75 years in
Is there
existence.
still a Schwab's up on? You remember where it's the famous,
No,
drugstore?
don't nobody remember that.
Yeah,
But
Schwab's.
you.
huh? Lana Turner got.
You don't even drink sugary drinks.
I know, but I want to
You
inconvenience.
just want to inconvenience Skip.
I like inconveniencing Skip because they're gonna ask him, is this for here to go? And he's gonna say, it's to go. And they're gonna say, well, Mr. Bayless, who are you getting this for? Because we know you're a health food, and I want you to tell him.
Oh.
I lost the bet to Shannon.
So you want me to get it to go and the ice cream's going to melt?
I don't care. I wanted
I'll
to get
come
all.
with you, and I'll just.
I wanted to
drink
get
the root beer
all
float.
over your car on those seats. I wanted to be messy.
Such a waste of a delicious beverage.
Joy Taylor.
You got it.
I'm
You
gonna
got
bet you. I'm gonna bet you something too, Joy Taylor. I bet you're a Dolphin.
I don't gamble.
Yo, you gotta
I don't-
bet
I
something.
don't believe in that.
You Stop telling stories up here.
What? Listen, I don't want to have to embarrass you. That would be rude.
I will embarrass me.
He gets embarrassed enough on me.
No mercy. Dak Prescott has helped lead the Cowboys to the best record in the NFC. Yesterday, Troy Aikman spoke about meeting Dak before his first NFL start. Let's take a listen.
He walked into that room, and I've never felt the presence of a young quarterback like I did with him. And you say, wow, this is the most impressive young man I've ever been around at this position. And I really believed he was going to go out and play well. And I found that, before halftime of that game, his very first start, I was no longer looking at him and viewing him as a rookie. I felt my analysis kind of being along the lines of a veteran quarterback and what my expectations, were of him on the field. And I thought it spoke volumes just to how he carried himself.
We're joined now by Chris Carter. Welcome, Chris. Good morning.
Good
morning. Thank you.
Skip, let me start with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Has your guy, Dak, gotten enough credit this season?
No, he hasn't. And I don't want to overstate this, but I agree with everything Troy Aikman just said because I've been telling you that since the show began. Thank you.
You said it.
I appreciate that.
As soon as we started talking about the Cowboys, you said he's mature beyond anything you've ever seen as a rookie.
I saw him play 3 preseason games. I've been watching this game for a long time. You both played it for a long time. I've covered it for a long time. And as rookie quarterbacks go in preseason games, I had never seen the poise, the presence, the calmness, the confidence, the stature with which he stood tall in the pocket, especially in the dress rehearsal 3rd preseason game at Seattle. Is there a tougher place to play in that game than against that defense in Seattle? Romo got hurt on the 3rd play of the game, and he gets thrown into the fire, and they tried, those Seahawks, to lure the boom on him, as in Legion of Boom. They threw it all at him. He was getting blitzed just about every play. They wanted to humiliate and annihilate the kid quarterback. And I told you, he kept standing strong against the blitz, making the correct read and taking the hit right in the mouth and making accurate throws to the hot receiver. And it just really impressed me because you don't see it that often and that consistently. Then right away, he played with routine, poise, and confidence and accuracy, but nothing spectacular. He doesn't throw it down the field a lot. He can on occasion, but he just kept executing the offense in ways I'd never seen a rookie quarterback execute long drives. I kept saying to you, they keep going 13 plays, 85 yards. How do you do that? Because one of those plays, you're going to screw it up because you're just a kid. It's all new to you. You're seeing things you've never seen before, and the season's getting longer and longer, and the pressure's rising, and you have an owner looking over your shoulder, and now you got the former Pro Bowl quarterback looking over your shoulder, so the pressure just keeps mounting, and he keeps performing all the way to Tampa Bay when he goes 32 for 36. And I saw him go on the road and beat the Redskins, and on the road at Lambeau beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and on the road with 42 seconds left at Pittsburgh, pull that game out of his hat, and then come home and have huge games. We thought Cincinnati was pretty good at the time. We knew Baltimore was very good at the time. He threw for 301 against Baltimore, and then Washington again on Thanksgiving, and even that comeback against the Eagles at home on
overtime
Monday night. Yeah, it was impressive. And he's had a couple struggles. And again, I'm giving him a break at the Giants because both quarterbacks had a hard time throwing a wet football. That was the only game he's been inaccurate all year. But he doesn't have a signature touchdown celebration. He doesn't dap. He doesn't do this like Zeke does.
Don't dance.
No, he doesn't do anything. And he doesn't play spectacularly. He just plays routinely, consistently at a high level.
Correct.
He leads the National Football League, and my favorite stat, QBR, above everybody, above Ryan and Brady and Breeze, Aaron Rodgers. He leads it. And it should tell you something, but nobody seems to be, he hasn't captured the national imagination because he's not a quote machine. He tries to say just the right thing at the right time as the leader of the new leader of the locker room and the huddle and the football team. And it doesn't play well nationally. He's the opposite of Jerry Jones. Jerry is box office. Every time Jerry opens his mouth, we debate it right here. We never debate what Dak says, maybe a couple times we have, when he's called Des Bryant out a couple times. I will throw it to him when he's open. It was mature. It was like a 10-year quarterback saying that to a young receiver, and he put Dez in his place, and guess what? Dez bought it. He seemed to fall right back into line and say, okay, I'm riding with you. And he's had nothing but good things to say about the kid quarterback. But does he get credit? Well, his peers gave him some credit. They vote a little bit in the Pro Bowl, right? Media, players, some fans.
Fans, players, and coaches.
Yep. So he did make the Pro Bowl, but has he caught fire? No, he hasn't caught fire. Is he getting enough credit? I don't think so, because in this day and age, the media world we live in, the internet world, you have to have some entertainment to you. You have to have a little song and dance to you to go along with your production on the field, and he's got none, which is what I love the most about him.
Well, I think there's a couple of things you need to look at from what Troy is saying. Okay, for one, Troy is interviewing all the executives, all the quarterbacks, all the coaches every week. I mean, he's got the big-time game. And Troy has
the night before the game. Yeah.
Yes. So Troy and the watching Friday practice. So they're there a couple days in the city. Troy is not the kind of guy that's going to say something just to be a quote machine. So for him to say, because what he said was, this guy has a lot of intangibles, not stuff that we can put on the table, but stuff that's up under the hood that when you play quarterback, it becomes very, very important. Does he have the overall demeanor? Can he handle success? From an X's and O's, Troy was very, very impressed by him, by his lack of fandom or stardom. Very impressed. Also, what he's faced going against with Jerry Jones, speaking out from a weekly basis. So Troy has helped balance that. But also, no one knows better than Troy what it takes to wear that star on your helmet and play for that owner under duress. So there's a lot of little small things that Troy is trying to tell us in this. And I like the fact that he analyzed them, because I don't like to get ahead of it.
Right.
I don't like to get ahead of the kids. Even though I've worked out a lot of kids, I think they're going to be stars. From a wide receiver standpoint, I'll compare him to someone who's had a great career. He was Anquan Bolden. Anquan Bolden coming out of Florida State. He was a former quarterback. They had moved to wide receiver. He slipped in the draft because of his measurables. Went on to
4-7, huh?
Yes, went on to instant success in the NFL. It was because of his skill, but also his intangibles, his football integrity, his ability to work with other people, catch the ball in traffic. So that's what Troy is seeing with Dak, and we need to listen. Listen to what he's saying, not only with words, but listen to what he's not saying, and that's the intangibles that lead to being a great quarterback for a long time in this league, Shannon.
We talked about it, Skip, the other day. There are two people that carry cachet in Dallas that trumps all. That's Roger Staubach and Troy Aikman. And they have the same thing in common. They played quarterback for the Cowboys. They won Super Bowl for the Cowboys. So when they talk on football-related topics, be it around the National Football League, but especially the Dallas Cowboys, people take notice.
And over the years, both of them been very consistent. When there was a bad story or something to be said about Dallas, they said it compared to being on the bandwagon like some of the other ones.
I think the thing is, Skip, it's so hard to evaluate him because he came into the perfect situation. In the 97-year history of the National Football League, no quarterback has come into a situation like him. It would have been like Amari Cooper being the best receiver in the draft, going to the Green Bay Packers or the New England Patriots. He came in. They have the best offensive line in football. He came in. They had the best running back in the draft. So now, how can we properly evaluate this young man? Because we've never seen anybody come into a situation quite like this. Not because normally when you go into a situation, you go into a bad situation.
Yes.
Especially now, granted, he was a fourth-round pick.
Bad team, bad line. Yes.
Nothing.
These are things you inherit.
Bad organization. Because there's a reason why you're picking that high up. Normally, if you're picking that high up, you're not a very good organization. The Steelers are not picking fourth in the draft. The Patriots are not picking fourth in the draft. So some things have happened that causes you to pick fourth in the draft. So I think it's really hard for us to how good is Dak?
Okay.
Because you got the league's leading rusher by over 300 yards. You got 3 offensive linemen. Chris, you and I played this. I played 14. What'd you play, 16?
16.
You played 16. I can't say I've ever seen a team have 3 starting offensive linemen named to the Pro Bowl. 3. Now,
both the Raiders and the Cowboys.
But here's the difference. The Cowboys 3 are going to be first-team All-Pro. Every last one of them. So now you got 3 first-team All-Pro. So the media members that's vote, the 50 media members say, you know what? Those 3 linemen are the best linemen at their position in the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott is going to be a first-team All-Pro running back. So how do we properly evaluate Dak Prescott given those circumstances? I agree with everything CC and Troy said, because it's not so much what you say, it's what you don't say when you play that position. He's very CEO-like. He's very buttoned up.
Yes.
He knows what to say. He knows how to say it. He knows when to say it. It's not easy playing that position when you have an owner that you know, and everybody knows that the guy that's backing you up, he really wants him in front of you. He wants you to back him up. He's very business. I'm gonna come out here and do my job. I'm gonna read the defense. I'm gonna stay in my playbook. The guy's open, I'm gonna give him the football. And if somebody misses assignment, I'm gonna do my best. If I get hit in the back, I'm gonna hold on to the ball. And that's what he's been able to do. So it's not easy to evaluate him, Skip, because he's in the perfect, ideal situation. No other quarterback can ever say they went to a situation quite like this. So it's very unique. But that's not to take anything away from him, because I think he's handled that success well.
I think there's a situation that's worth comparing, and it was Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes.
There was a couple quarterbacks taken before him, joined an outstanding organization.
Yes.
Great defense, could run the ball. Very successful early in his career. So we sat back then and been like, how good is the guy?
Yep.
I mean, he's got all these things around him, but how good is he?
Went to the championship game his first year. The Super Bowl is next year.
So I think that the comparisons can be made. The only difference is Ben was drafted in the top 15.
Right.
And Dak went in the 4th round. So people are less likely to give the guy credit who went in the 4th round as having the same intangibles as we do these first rounders.
Your point, both your points, are valid and fair. How do you evaluate a kid who falls into this much talent on an offense? Again, he was as blessed as they were blessed to get him in the 4th round, because it just doesn't happen like this. But I'm going to remind you, last year, those same linemen were still there. And last year, Dez was hurt, but he played a lot, and the weapons were pretty much still there. He wasn't Dez. But the point is, they did have a 1,000-yard rusher in Darren McFadden, who's a pretty good back. He's not Ezekiel, but he's pretty good.
Right.
And yet, Matt Castle, who had had success, obviously, in New England with a good team, won 11-5, and had some success in Kansas City.
Went to the playoffs in Kansas City.
Went to a Pro Bowl, I believe, in Kansas City. He won one game against Kirk Cousins at Washington, but they went 1-11 without Tony Romo, with obviously Castle and Brandon Weeden, quarterback.
And Kellen Moore.
And Kellen Moore. But the point was that you see what this kid is doing. It's so much better as a rookie than what those guys were able to do with similar talent, that you say, man, you should give him a break and give him some credit here.
I say, well, CC, I look at it like this. He's good, but how good? What would he be like, say, in Philly? What would he be like at the Giants? So if you look at...
Well, that's easy to do.
Right.
But what we really should judge him on is the way we judge any quarterback. From a little league team, I'm talking about 8-year-old, 10-year-old, high school team, college and pro. You the quarterback one team, you the quarterback of the other team. Y'all get off the bus and go on the field and play. Which one of y'all go back on the bus as a winner? Now, to me, that's how I evaluate Tom Brady. People can say what they want early in his career. They won a couple of championships because the team around them. When you're the quarterback of the team and you driving the bus, at the end of the day, does your team win? That's the number one way to evaluate a quarterback, and we can't skew it just because it's Dak and Dallas.
But Dak is in a great situation with lots of talent, but the intangibles to manage all that and to be the leader of that team is not something to overlook.
Yeah, we got talent here, but you still got to
come
come in here and perform.
Yes.
No mercy.
Video of Oklahoma running back Joe Mixon punching a woman in 2014 was released late last week. At the time, Mixon was suspended for 1 season, but was allowed to rejoin the team. Yesterday, Bob Stoops addressed the situation publicly for the first time since the video was released. Let's take a listen.
2.5 years ago, going through all this, I think what was taken into consideration, too, were all the factors leading up to it, the entire altercation. And, thought we had a significant penalty and strong penalty. But, now it isn't enough. These individuals cannot have a second chance because of there's too much, it's just not acceptable. They know it anymore. We've been told enough, and there's more, we have more meetings and things of that nature that, that instruct and let them know what appropriate behavior is and isn't and what the consequences are. Dismissal is really the only thing that's possible, and a young guy having an opportunity to rehabilitate and to have some kind of discipline and come back from it is really not there anymore.
Shannon, what's your reaction?
Joy, I want to be clear, Skip. I want to be crystal clear. I want to be abundantly clear. I'm not here to offer defense for Joe Mixon because what he did is indefensible. I'm not here to apologize for Joe Mixon because Joe Mixon, as the offending party, should offer the apology. It's being reported that he did. Whether or not the victim accepted it, that's for her to deal. I just hope that she's able to, at some point in her life, be able to move on from this traumatic experience. My problem is with the hypocritical Bob Stoops. See, Bob Stoops, all of a sudden, after 2.5 years, he has morals now. Bob Stoops, the athletic director, and I'm also going to assume the president of the University of Oklahoma, saw that very video that was released last Friday in its entirety, a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month after it happened. So that meant it was very, very fresh. They determined that Joe Mixon couldn't play for the University of Oklahoma that season. They suspended him for 1 year. The judicial process ran its course. The state of Oklahoma said for a first-time offender, a guy that has no prior history, this is what the punishment we deem is appropriate for you. Now, if you have a problem with the state of Oklahoma and the way they handle it, you take that up with them. But my problem is with Bob Stoops, because upon seeing this video 2.5 years ago, he felt that a year suspension was enough. And he felt that giving a young man a second chance, an opportunity to rehabilitate himself was enough. But I'm sure some of the stipulations, guys, were you need to maintain a great academic standing at the University of Oklahoma. This or any other incidents that will cause a stain on the University of Oklahoma, this football program, and you, Mr. Mixon, will not be tolerated, and it will be immediate dismissal. I'm assuming those were some of the stipulations for him staying on this football team. Now, what Joe Mixon learned is that Bob Stoops only supported him in private. Because once this tape got out, and Bob Stoops knew, in today's climate with social media the way it is, there's nothing in private. He knew this tape would eventually get out. So Joe Mixon is finding out today that Bob Stoops only supported him in private. That when the blowback started to come from the media, because they're saying, well, hold on, Bob, how could you see this tape and only suspend the guy for a year? Now Bob Stoops says, knowing what I know now, he's got morals. He's gone to church every day since then because now he's the moral compass and he's all this moral authority. Mind you, he did take on Dorial Green Beckham from the University of Missouri who had drug offenses. Not the same thing, but I'm just saying he was willing to give someone a second chance.
He had another allegation of domestic violence.
D.D. Westbrook. Yes. But I'm sure you're going to touch on that. So I'm going to let you have that one, Skip.
Yep.
So he saw this 2 years ago. Joe Mixon was never going to be able to outrun this. This was always going to be on his resume. But if he did enough good deeds moving forward, if he became a model citizen moving forward, it would be lowered down on his resume. Because I think there are a lot of people that have done things in the past, maybe not to this extent, maybe not this egregious, but they've done things, Skip, that we look at them and that's not the first thing that we say. Mm-hmm. So Bob Stoops he also said, and we didn't get this part, he suspended him. He hadn't played a down for Oklahoma, but he didn't know how good Joe Mixon could be. Skip, Joe Mixon was a 5-star recruit. Rivals had him as the #1 running back coming out that year.
No, just so you get this, he was one of the most ballyhooed recruits in Oklahoma football history, which is a decorated, long history.
He didn't know. Skip, do you know what college would go through and head coaches go through to get these 5-star recruits? Think about this. Jim Harbaugh wanted a 5-star recruit so bad, he went and hung out in the dude's treehouse. They have dinner. Harbaugh was standing on the sidelines with the yard markers. You promised them things. What number do you want?
By the way, Alabama and Florida State, they all wanted Joe Mixon.
And that's
yeah.
So in order for you to get him from all these schools, you know the talent he possessed. Because what colleges recruit players that they don't think can help them win a ball game? Bob Stoops know what he had in Joe Mixon. Sure. He knew. But now, after 2 Big 12 titles, after getting into the college playoff last year, the punishment that I gave him was not enough. Skip, look, the problem that I have, not just with Mr. Stoops, but with our society, I want to know this. Who gets a second chance? For what offenses are we to be given a second chance? And who determines if we are to get those second chances? So if Joe Mixon, if he had dismissed Joe Mixon and he went to another university, are we going to hold that university? Because it's the same thing with the Patriots. They know what Michael Floyd did. They were with 30 other teams passed.
Yep.
The Patriots said, we're willing to take that. We saw Greg Hardy. Jerry Jones says, look, we know what this young man did. We believe we have the people in place to give this man the proper help to get him, and we believe in second chances. We believe that we can help this young man rehabilitate himself and go on further. You're not condoning his action if you say you believe in second chances. That's all Bob Stoops had to do. But now he's made it virtually impossible. I would be surprised if he played in the bowl game. I know he can't come back. Bob Stoops not only did he throw the man under the bus, Bob Stoops is driving the bus, Skip. And it's shameful. It's so hypocritical that now he finds morals only after the media gave him blowback.
Should he have dismissed Joe Mixon at that moment 2.5 years ago? Is that what you're saying? Or he just shouldn't have said what he said yesterday?
Skip, if he had dismissed him, I got no problem with it. If he said, Joe, what you did, I can't keep you on this program. This is just so egregious that you would act like this as a representative of the University of Oklahoma. I wish you well. Skip, we saw this. We saw Lou Holtz do it with Randy Moss. He said, Randy, I can't keep you here. But let me tell you what I'm going to do.
That was because the administration said you can't. Lou was fighting it. In fact, that was one of the final straws why Lou had to leave.
But he recommended him to Bobby Bowden. Okay, I can't keep you here, but I'll recommend you to a junior college or a place of your choosing. Say that. But to come back and say you should have done more, why? That tape, Skip, it did not show a new act. It highlighted what Bob Stoops already knew and what the people that had never seen that. Skip, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to say this. This is how I look at it. When I read the paper and it says a person was decapitated in a car accident, I don't need to see the picture of the headless corpse. When it said, you read the report, she suffered a broken jaw and a broken nose. I didn't need to see the video to know the man had to strike her with severe force. You know that. So it didn't change anything. So now it's more egregious 2 years later. Now it's even more when it was so fresh, and it wasn't enough to dismiss him. But now he should have. Bob Stoops full of bull jive.
I hear everything you're saying. You probably have a lot of good points there. I have a different take. And allow me by starting to disqualify myself that I was born and raised an Oklahoma fan, University of Oklahoma football fan. And as a fan, I have called for Stoops' dismissal as the head coach many times over the last 3 years, the previous 2 on my old show. Just for the record, I do know Bob Stoops, and for the record, I do like him personally. Now, my personal stance before I proceed about this incident is that under no circumstance should a man ever hit a woman, under no circumstance. If the woman physically attacks the man, and this is as they preach and teach in NFL seminars, the man has to flee the scene, get out, vacate the area, remove yourself from the situation as fast as you can. Under no circumstance do you hit back in that circumstance. And yet, Joe Mixon hit back. And he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is another one of those 3 o'clock in the morning situations, and who knows who would have been drinking what or smoking what. I have no idea. They might not have, anybody involved, been in their right minds, and that's usually the case. Yet, even though slurs were exchanged back and forth, and even though she initiated the contact, Joe Mixon had to get out. He had to run. He had to just remove himself. But he had just turned 18. He had just arrived on campus as the top running back recruit. So he was probably thinking at that point,
he's the big man on campus.
And he reacted by hitting her full force with a closed fist into the jaw, it looked like. And she fell backwards and then proceeded to hit her face on the edge of the table. So that was insult to injury to insult. Now, we get to the tricky part of the situation before I get to what Bob Stoops ruled. By the letter of the Oklahoma law, which got changed in 1980 thanks to a female legislator who wanted gender taken out of the equation, gender neutral. It should just be human versus human, person versus person in any of these situations, any of these conflicts. But by the letter of that law, both of them should have been charged with assault. And you could argue that Mixon should have been charged with aggravated assault. But it appeared to me from a distance, and I'm not great at this, but I've read a lot about it, but it appeared that the DA was stuck here because if he charged Mixon with aggravated assault, by the letter of the law, he would be forced to charge her with something, just some sort of assault, because the initial striking of Mixon is that's battery.
Right.
So she was out of line to start with. Okay, she was breaking the law, if you will. So the DA backed off and lessened his sentence for Joe Mixon because misdemeanor assault he could only charge Mixon with without charging her with anything.
Correct.
But misdemeanor assault is obviously no jail time, 100 hours of community service, we always hear this, and counseling. So given that sentence, Stoops and his administration decide, this is 2.5 years ago, almost simultaneously, the Ray Rice situation is unfolding in the NFL. So we're progressing with this. The media world is starting to be enlightened here on two fronts, but the college front not so much yet because the video has not been made public.
Correct.
But again, given that sentence, Bob Stoops decided to ban Joe Mixon for an entire year from all football activities.
Right.
Not to dismiss him, not to kick him out of the program, but you can't come to the weight room, you can't come to the off season, you can't do anything with the football program for a whole year. And I must admit, even though at that time, remember, they showed the video to select members of the media, to a group of media members. And I talked to one of those who saw the video. It was written about, it was talked about on radio, television. I had a really good idea. When I finally saw the video, it was exactly what I thought it was. So given that, the media world, the internet world, did have a pretty good grip on what had just happened. And I thought that it was appropriately severe punishment at that time. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I just thought, oh, that's pretty severe because, again, you can say, well, he was maybe going to redshirt. He wasn't going to redshirt him. He was going to put him in the starting lineup because this was a stud kid, right?
Yeah, he was legit.
He was legit. And yet, Stoops also risked, remember, I thought the kid would leave. I thought he would just transfer. He'd say, oh, you don't have my back on this? You're going to ban me from the program for a whole year when I'm the #1 recruit in America? I just figured Stoops was risking losing the kid, and the kid decided to stick it out. I don't know why. He just said, I'll stick it out. I'll play. And to your point, he came back and played the first year, and they made it all the way to the national semifinal. And he was one of two really, Samaje Perine. So they got two really good backs, and they got wiped out by Clemson. But they got that far. And then this year, they won the Big 12, as you point out. And he's very good. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a pretty good pro football player. All right. So given the fact that this was written and talked about, there was no outrage expressed anywhere, locally or nationally, that I heard of. And I follow the team pretty closely. I didn't hear any media outrage at that point, and I'm the first to admit I didn't have outrage. That seemed the appropriately severe punishment to me at the time. I'm just being honest with you.
Okay.
But I didn't read or hear any outrage. Did either of you?
I did not. I knew about the incident, but I didn't hear the up in arms like, he should be in jail or whatever.
Okay. So 2.5 years later, the Open Records Act is challenged, sued, anyway. So it finally becomes public 2.5 years later, and now there's outrage. And I get it because it's the age we live in.
Right.
If you can see the video, wow. If you can see the video of Michael Floyd, he looked like that.
Right.
That's what somebody looks like when they're 3 times over the legal limit. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's terrible. How dare those patriots? How dare Bob Stoops? Here's my bottom line. Bob Stoops didn't have to speak yesterday. And maybe from a PR point of view, to your point, maybe he should have shut up. I think it would sort of go away. I mean, I know there was outrage, but I don't think that he had to speak.
No.
Do you?
No, he do not.
Okay.
And he comes off as being holier than thou after the fact.
Okay, I got that. But I've talked to several people who know Stoops, who cover Stoops, and they believe he was genuine yesterday. So in this case, I'm going to give him a little benefit of the doubt. I think he's been enlightened. And I think that guy you heard yesterday was actually expressing, I've seen the light here. And I think we're seeing the light as a society. He does go to church. I think he's a decent guy. Now, is he a football coach? And did he take high risks on Dorial Green Beckham and Frank Shannon and Dee Dee Westbrook? Yes, he did.
Yes.
And is he all about winning? You better believe he is. Can he coach? That's a whole nother issue. But my point is, he's just like all those other coaches.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
And you know what, Skip, and I'm not trying to make light of this, but I'm sure he prayed on that situation, and he asked, what he thought, and at the time he thought that was the appropriate sentence for what he had seen on that tape. Skip, my only thing is this. Whatever the punishment is for a first-time offender with no prior history, whatever that is across the board, Skip, I can live with it.
Okay.
If it's 6 months, if it's a year, I can live with it. But I do not want to be in a situation, if it's an athlete, that he's a first-time offender. He has no prior history, but because he's an athlete, he should be punished more severely than an ordinary citizen. I don't want to hear this, we got to protect women because I hear we got to protect these women on college campuses. We got to protect women everywhere, not just the ones on college campuses, because there are more women that do not go to college than do. So I don't want to put any more added benefit or say someone is more important because they go to college than someone that don't, because I don't think anybody have the right to be harmed. So whatever that punishment is for a first-time offender with no prior history.
Okay, I got it.
I can live with the outcome.
Okay, but Bob Stoops is saying we've come a long way in the last 2.5 years to an enlightenment of, this is what it should be. And he's saying it should be zero tolerance. I should have seen the light back then. I should have just dismissed the young man from the program just because we just can't condone that. And he's made friends with this Brenda Tracy, who's a national activist who had the situation at Oregon, and she's now been involved, Oregon State, I'm sorry. She's been involved at Baylor speaking out and at Nebraska speaking out, and she's been at OU quite a bit. And I think you can say it's for show, but one thing about Stoops, he doesn't do things for show. I don't see that in him. He's not a grandstander. He's not a showman type coach. I saw genuine. I heard authentic yesterday. And that's just me. And again, I'm not trying to give him a break because I've called for his job. But in the end, I think he was saying that the right thing to do now, as I look back, the right thing should have been to send him on his way. Your thoughts?
I mean, the visual element is always what changes it in these situations. These, like you said, women everywhere. This happens all over the world every single day. So when you see it, if you've not been affected by it, when you see it in a video, it changes your opinion. So maybe he knew about it. Maybe he hadn't seen the video. I'm sure he did see the video.
No, he saw it early. He saw it right away.
So when you hear the outrage, and I'm sure he's hearing more stories now that people are coming out and reacting to the video, maybe it did change it. I don't have a problem with the suspension. He was an 18-year-old kid. I think that you have to go through some rehabilitation and have consequences. And, the law is what the law is. But really, the biggest problem is that there needs to be more education about the effect that this has. And if there's a zero-tolerance policy, hopefully that will start to affect people when they make these decisions.
One more thing. What is the offense that the offender can no longer get a second chance. So if you say this is zero tolerance, does that mean Joe Mixon can never have
That's
unemployment?
a great question.
So because
I want to say, no, it does not mean that. It just means that wherever you are at that point,
at that program.
that program has to say that's enough.
Because that's what I hear a lot of the felons that get released. If you said, I don't get a second chance, you're not going to hire me because what I did previously. So what am I supposed to do? So
you're supposed to make better decisions.
But that's what I'm saying. But if you don't get a second chance, how can you make better decisions if no one gives you a second chance?
I believe in second chances, and I believe in rehabilitation, and there needs to be more consistency with it.
I can live with that.
No mercy. The 10-4 Giants are on the road tonight against the Eagles. If the Giants win, they will clinch their first playoff berth since their 2011 Super Bowl season. If they lose, the Cowboys clinch the top seed in the NFC. We're joined by former NFL General Manager Michael Lombardi. Welcome, Michael.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, Michael.
Are you buying the Giants as contenders?
I have not bought the Giants all year. I buy the Giants defensively as contenders, but I think when you look over the landscape of where they are, you look over their football team and how they play, it's a defensive-oriented team. And you would say, well, look, the Denver Broncos were a defensive-oriented team. They won. The Seattle Seahawks were a defensive-oriented team. They went to the Super Bowl. But for me, the Giants are way different than both those teams, and starting with their running game. They can't run the football effectively. They're 30th in the league in running. They can't do it out of a one-back set continually. The Broncos could run the ball, even though they were only 17th in the league last year. And the Seattle Seahawks could run the ball. But I think it goes deeper than just that. Those teams, Denver and Seattle, had home field advantage all throughout the playoffs. Right. And your defense can carry you at home. What you're telling me by asking that question, you're saying that the New York Giants are going to go on the road and potentially win in Green Bay, potentially win in Dallas, and then potentially win in Seattle. And I'm saying no. I'm saying there's no way this team's winning those 3 games. I don't care what you tell me, how many times Nick Wright tells me on my podcast how great Odell Beckham is. I don't care. I don't care that he sleeps with an Odell Beckham doll at night. I don't care any of that. I'm saying to you, I've not seen it happen. The numbers don't lie. This offense is bad. Eric Flowers is a turnstiles. Eli Manning is not just going to turn it on in some magical way. He's the worst quarterback against the blitz all season. So for me, that's where it is. And I went through that whole statement, and I never mentioned their head coach, Ben McAdoo, so I'm doing better.
And by the way, what do you think of Ben McAdoo?
I think Ben McAdoo is what I call a copycat coach. I think he's come from Green Bay. If Green Bay plays, I've always referred to his play sheet as the Cheesecake Factory menu because it's 17 volumes. I mean, I don't think he's left anything in his office. So if Green Bay were to play the New York Giants, I think it would behoove the Cheesecake Factory to go out and endorse the game. The Packers versus the Giants, sponsored by Cheesecake. We have all those bowl games sponsored by everybody else.
Sponsored by everybody.
Because they both have it. I think McAdoo's a young coach. I think he's been very fortunate. Steve Spagnuolo was an architect of 2 of the worst defenses in the history of football in the top 5, the New Orleans Saints and last year's New York Giants. Statistically, those 2 defenses were the worst in the top 5 in the National Football League. And Spagnuolo has turned it around. And I think where Spagnuolo deserves a lot of credit is he stopped trying to be a TV booth coach, which what that by I mean is you make calls so the guys in the TV booth become impressed with you so you can promote yourself to become a head coach. He did that too often with the bad teams. This year he's played much better. They're very good at tackling. They're good on all 3 levels of their defense. I do not dispute their defense being very good. I don't. But look, this team lost on the road to Pittsburgh. They've lost in Minnesota. They've lost in Green Bay. So now you're saying they're going to run the table by being this dominant team in Green Bay, potentially in Dallas, and potentially in Seattle, and I just don't buy it. I think their offense has gotten worse as McAdoo got promoted.
Love that.
I bet you are.
You're here.
Because anytime you mention something bad about the Giants and something positive about the
Cowboys.
How
are you going to counter that?
I believe they are. I believe they can do it because I am buying their defense. And if you look at the last 9 games, they're number 1 in scoring defense, number 2 in sacks, number 1 in third down conversion rate against. So 29% of the time teams are only completing third down.
Let me just interject something. They're also the 26th in the league in time of possession. So as many times as their defense gets the other team off the field, the offense can't stay on the field. And even though they have the greatest football player in the history, I mean, I was with Jerry Rice. I drafted Jerry Rice, and somehow Odell Beckham has become the greatest player in the history. But continue.
They're 4th in rush deep. But here's the thing, and I told you this earlier, Skip. The way their defense is playing, they can carry them to the Super Bowl. Right now, they're winning games, getting 1 to maybe 2 plays per game. It's very difficult to sustain that because the one thing you cannot have happen, you can't let teams score on your possessions. The defense can't defend that. You can't give up special teams touchdowns because your defense can't defend that. That puts a lot of pressure because I was with the Ravens in 2000 and we had a dominant defense and we had to play for 1 to 2 plays per game, but we couldn't turn it over because if you turn the football over, Ray Lewis and those guys couldn't stop that. So I believe in knowing Eli because he is a guy, he gets in the playoffs, they win the Super Bowl, or they don't even make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs this year. And when Eli gets into the playoffs, lick him, Eli.
Lick him. Yeah. What does Ray Lewis?
Get hot.
Ray Lewis play for this defense?
Get hot, Eli.
Tell him, Skip. I mean,
I haven't seen Ray Lewis.
Stop hating on the Giants, Skip. You said you wanted to play them again. You should want them in the playoffs.
I love him in the playoffs.
So they can bloody your nose again.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
It's so much. You're hoping for this. There's no evidence to support any of that.
My nose is bloodied by 1 point and by 3 points. That's some blood right there.
Yes, okay.
That's not even a trickle.
And the Eli, you just think he's just going to turn the switch on?
Eli.
Oh, I got it.
By the way, Michael, not to overcorrect you here, but I've got him 30th in time of possession because I'm going to pile on that stat.
It may be. I know they're in the bottom third.
Yeah, and they're 31st in third down conversions. So the poor defense just gets left out there and left out there and left out there some more. And by the way, the best player on the defense is no longer on the defense. Jason Pierre-Paul is probably gone for the year.
He wasn't
right
the
about
best.
that?
He was
Yes,
not
he
playing.
was.
No, he wasn't.
He's the
Jack
most talented
Jack
player.
Rabbit was playing better. Olivier Vernon was playing better.
Now you got nicknames for him?
Jack Rabbit.
He's cozied up to him. Yeah.
Jack Rabbit Janoris Jenkins.
Oh, Jack Rabbit Janoris.
Yeah, and Landon
I thought he was
Collins.
handcuffs Janoris, right? Did you call him handcuffs?
You already know. You already know what he's going to do today.
Yeah.
Gave him 2-year sentences.
Yeah, I can't
1 for 8 in the fumble and 1 for 8
wait.
and be
So,
happy.
Eli Manning, the guy you love, lick him, Eli. He's 23rd in QBR. He's having one of his worst years. They're 24th in scoring. I get what you said. I told you to start the show. Last 9 games, number 1 in defense in the National Football League. But they do not take the ball away. They just keep you out of the end zone. And I give it up. That's impressive because that's hard to do the way they're doing it because the offense is hard to watch. That's the problem because over those 9 games, they've won 8 or 9. They're averaging 20.3 points a game. That's not very good. So you're giving up 15.8 in the 9-game stretch, but you're only scoring 20.3, so you're barely winning game after game. You beat Dallas all of 10-7 when neither quarterback could throw the wet football.
Can I ask you a question? The Super Bowl that New England beat Seattle, what was the final score?
All I know is New England won.
Okay, that's all I know.
Yeah.
All I know is the Giants played your team. Y'all number 1 in time of possession. You average more points per drive than any other team. And guess what? The Giants didn't let y'all do any of that.
What are you talking about, 2007?
I'm talking about 2016. The Giants have kicked the Cowboys' booty.
Counselor, can I ask you one question?
You can.
How do you surmise that they're going to be able to take this on the road? Now, one thing. Will you answer this question directly?
Yes.
If the Denver Broncos would have played the New England Patriots in Foxborough last year, what would have happened?
I don't really like to do hypotheticals, Michael Lombardi.
Of course you don't, but I asked you to answer a direct question.
Okay.
Why don't you answer it for him? New England would have won convincingly.
Okay,
because
if the tuck rule had not happened, what would have happened in that game?
My son would have had a free year at Fordham. Okay, all right. So I correct you on that. All right. So now, that being said, if we would have been able to play New England, if New England would have been able to play Denver, we would have been able to control the best part of their defense, which was the front, by the crowd noise. My point is, I'm not a giant hater. I observe football and I understand the game to the point where if the Giants defense, which is great, it's just played well. They've given up 4 second-half touchdowns in the last 8 games, okay? I do not dispute that.
To the Cowboys.
But when they travel and you have to play on the road, you can neutralize a front. You play no tempo. The crowd noise helps you. You can do it at home. You get away with it because of it. But on the road, it's hard. If you want to compare this to the Raven defense in 2000, then God bless you because I don't see it.
Let me ask you a question.
You ask a lot of questions.
Okay, well,
he has no answers, but he has a lot of questions.
In these last 9 games, they're 8-1. They played all of them at home?
Well, you know, that Cleveland game, why don't you hang your hat on that one? That's an impressive one to hang your hat on. The Cleveland Browns have won.
You answer that question.
Because
You just trapped yourself. The Cleveland Browns are 1-24 over the last 25 games.
Did the Patriots play the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, they did.
Did the Cowboys play the Cleveland Browns?
What does that matter to this
Oh,
question?
so y'all
You're quoting that as a road win.
Hold on, time out. You guys can play Cleveland on the road and get a win. You can play Cleveland on the road and get a win. But
we guys are 12-2.
all I'm saying is, hold on. You can get road wins against Cleveland. You can get road wins against Cleveland. But if the Giants get them, you marginalize Cleveland now.
You marginalized the fact that we did score one touchdown at New York thanks to Dak going to T. Will. Was that not a sweet play? Remember that one?
Did you score in the second half?
By the way, if you know, they did just 2 weeks ago lose in Pittsburgh. I mean, that's the great thing about the NFL. Everybody has amnesia about this, you know.
24-14.
24-14, and Eli turned the ball over, which is violating your rule
but I
of
know he won't do
conduct.
that in the playoffs.
So, bottom line, I am hoping the Giants win tonight and win out because I need them. I want them.
I don't think
at
the Giants
Jerry
will
World.
beat the Eagles tonight. I don't.
Well, Shannon may have giant pajamas too. We know you have LeBron jammies.
Jack Rabbit.
Nick Wright sleeps
Jack
in
Rabbit
those
goes-
That's what I have to
switch.
get Nick Wright for Christmas is Odell Beckham
Jack Rabbit?
pajamas.
You
Yes.
want a Jack Rabbit sweatshirt?
No, I did not.
No mercy. Former Nuggets coach George Karl had some harsh criticism for Carmelo Anthony, a player he coached for 7 years. In his new book, Furious George, Karl wrote, "Carmelo was a true conundrum for me. He was the best offensive player I ever coached. He was also a user of people, addicted to the spotlight, and very unhappy when he had to share it. Coaching him meant working around his defense and compensating for his attitude. Sometimes I got so sick of talking about him that I just throw my hands up and say, I don't know what he is, and I don't care." Skip, were George Karl's comments in bounds or out of bounds?
That's a tough question. I know George pretty well. I like him. You'd like him if you were around him because he can really talk some hoops. He knows basketball. He can talk X's and O's. He can talk personalities. It feels, though, a little bit out of bounds to me because my problem with George from the start is George always wants to be the star of the team, and it won't work. Even though George had some success, he got to 3 conference finals, and he got to 1 NBA finals, ran into the greatest player ever, but he had Gary Payton and Sean Kemp and Sam Perkins, Detlef Schrempf in Seattle, and they ran into MJ and company. But George had some success coaching, but he didn't win championships.
Right.
And in part because George is as big a diva as the divas he coached. And there's a lot of truth to what he said about Carmelo. He did give him the credit of the best offensive player I ever coached. But the whole idea of user of people, I know Melo too, that seemed a little harsh and a little out of bounds to me, a little too personal. He also, George would tell me that Carmelo was so gifted that he would tell Carmelo, if you felt like it, if you put your mind to it, you could average 10 assists a night. That's how gifted he was with the basketball. Obviously, Carmelo wants to score the basketball. Obviously, Carmelo hasn't been great at making teammates better around him. Carmelo, in his career, has gotten to 1 conference final for George Karl. So in the big picture, it leaves a little sour taste in my mouth that he would go that far because George is just like Carmelo to me. He's a very talented underachiever. George as a coach is an underachiever too because the coach in this league cannot try to be the star of the show. Greg Popovich sort of becomes the star of the show only because he won't talk to the media, right? That's his, sort of his claim to fame or infamy, right? But Pop takes a back seat. He is a player's coach. He's going to protect his players. He doesn't need the spotlight. Pop runs from the spotlight. He hates doing the post-game interviews. He basically insults a lot of the reporters who try to cover him. And in this case, George lights up to the spotlight to a fault. So my conclusion here, it's slightly out of bounds.
Well, George Karl has a habit of players speaking out against him. In 2011, I want to read, Carmelo Anthony tweeted, "When the grass is cut, the snakes will show." This was after George Karl made a comment about Carmelo Anthony. And it seems to me that a lot of people have this very feeling because Ty Lawson, Andre Iguodala, J.R. Smith, Boogie Cousins, all tweeted similar things about a snake being in the grass. Now, I know Boogie Cousins and J.R. Smith and Ty Lawson, and people are like, well, these guys have been on so many different teams that come and go, and Boogie Cousins, he's a malcontent. But the likelihood of 5, 6 different guys feeling and saying the exact same thing about a person, when a lot of these guys have not played simultaneous with that on the same team for that coach, speaks a lot about what players actually think. And I think for the most part, of all these people that we're talking about, Andre Iguodala has the most pristine of reputation.
He does.
So for him to say that,
I
now
agree.
I have to give a lot of credence to what's being said by other people. I think it's a little bit out of bounds, and I get, like, when you're trying to peddle a book, what is the one excerpt that I can release to make people want to buy and read my book? Because talking about Gary Payton, unless you're an avid basketball fan, you're probably not going to remember who Gary Payton or maybe Sean Kemp, although GP is a Hall of Fame player. He was outstanding, maybe the best defensive guard ever.
I agree.
Along with Michael Jordan, Kobe, obviously, in that mix. Sean Kemp, Detlef Schrempf, they're not going to elicit a response that a current player, Carmelo is the biggest star playing currently that played under George Karl. So obviously people are like, well, okay, this is what he said about Karl and Melo. It might be some more interesting tidbits in there. I think it was out of bounds because I don't think a coach, for me, and that's the hardest part about writing a book, because I realize that you have to get really personal. You have to say really juicy things to get people to want to buy and read your book. But when you've coached as long as George Karl has, and I don't know what type of relationship he has with any of the players that he coached.
Contentious.
Yeah.
It was always
I was
contentious.
about, you Skip, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm saying about reading about you're a snake in the grass. I'm not saying it's a very good. I'm not sure that people, the players that played under him, cherished that moment or really cared a whole lot about George Karl. There was not a situation where all of a sudden they're no longer playing for George Karl, that they're like, man, I missed that situation. No matter where it was, whether it was Seattle, whether it was Denver, whether it was Sacramento. I just think this is a little out of bounds for me too, Skip, because I don't think he had to take it here, because it seems to me it's becoming more, it's more personal. It's not really so much as a basketball coach and a player. This is a personal attack on Carmelo Anthony. And I know, and Carmelo Anthony is low-hanging fruit. The guy's been in the league 14 years. And as you mentioned, Skip, he's only been to one conference final. And so it's easy for him to pick on. But when you look at him in the Olympics and how well he plays with other great players, there's no question in my mind, had he been surrounded by some of the better players in the NBA, maybe he would have had more opportunities. Because if you really think about it, he's only really played with one, and that's Chauncey Billups. And he was able to get to a conference final. Allen Iverson was on his last legs. He wasn't the young AI. So if you put him, say, with like a Steph Curry that's playing with Durant or playing with Klay Thompson, Draymond, and LeBron's playing with Kevin Love and Kyrie, I think we might have had a different outlook on Carmelo Anthony's career.
Yeah, this feels a little bit like quote peddling, like you said. But you don't want to have to defend your character if you're Carmelo.
Right.
You know, this is something he's going to have to talk about, and that's unfair to him.
No mercy.
This is the Skip and Shannon Undisputed podcast, where we're delivering you an unscripted, unfiltered, undisputed version of the biggest topics of the day's show. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, like us on Facebook at Undisputed on FS1, follow on Twitter at Undisputed, and catch us at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, Monday through Friday on FS1. You can find us on channel 219 on DirecTV, 150 on Dish. That's all for today. I'm your host, Joy Taylor. We're back tomorrow for our final show this holiday week. We'll see you then.